let's end things off with Matt's pick of the week with something that is actually very, very interesting. And this is just a little article on Kotaku, and they brought up a little tweet made by Harry Partridge of Happy Harry Tunes regarding a little thing that actually does make you think a lot. Now, beforehand, let me just talk to you guys a little bit. If you don't know who Harry Partridge is, then allow me to just explain a bit. You might have actually seen Happy Harry Tune. In fact, he is one of the more popular internet animators out there. You might have actually seen a lot of his videos. Some of these include the Skyrim song, the Justin Bieber show, Hot Navi Sex, the Starbarians, let's see, back to Tamriel, Dr. Bees, Stefan the Lesbian, and also the Saturday Morning Watchmen, and all that kind of stuff. And also Hal, the misinterpretive porn star. So, definitely fantastic. And if you guys have not seen the works of, if you haven't seen any of the works of Harry Partridge, I highly recommend that you do so. He is a phenomenal animator. His animation is just so smooth, so crisp, very high quality, I might add. Very impressive for what he has to do. And even though, it takes for him, it would take a long time to make these, these animated bits, but you could definitely tell with the amount of effort that this guy puts in, it's just absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend you guys go and check out Harry Partridge if you haven't. Very beautiful, great animator. And I've heard he's also a great guy at the same time. But anyways, going into the story that I mentioned, he actually posted this very interesting picture on Twitter. It's actually a couple of drawings that he has done. And what it is it's a drawing of a boy, basically. Now, on one side, you got a boy that's drawn in the 90s style of TV animation. And then on another side, it's the same boy, but drawn in the 2010 TV animation style. And both of them are vastly different. And it's very interesting to see how different that they really are. And on top of that, there's even a larger picture where you actually see pretty much expanding through that, where you see the animation style of the 70s, and then you also got the animation style of the 80s, where basically on top of what we got with the 2010s and 1990s, with the 70s, it's pretty much a bit more simplistic, but trying to be more reminiscent to shows like Scooby-Doo, where everybody wants to be more in line with that. They want to be the next Scooby-Doo. And on top of that, you got the 80s style, which is a lot more detailed, a lot more refined, and very, very anime-inspired, especially with how the animation looks like it has a lot less frames per second, like in Japanese animation, but you could tell that it tries to make up for it with such very detailed design. And with the TV shows of the 80s, I mean stuff like Thundercats, Transformers, Inspector Gadget, and all that kind of stuff. But looking between the 90s and the 2010s, it's actually very fascinating and it's very intriguing. Because on one side, you got the 90s, and with the style that Harry is pretty much showing, is that what they wanted, when you think about the 90s TV shows, when you think about Darkwing Duck, or Gargoyles, or Animaniacs, or Tiny Toons Adventures, especially with companies from Warner Brothers and Disney, well, those two companies are pretty much, they pretty much dominated TV animation back in the day. But with that said, what they tried to do with their style is that, they mostly wanted to incorporate what they already got. Warner Brothers, they wanted to keep that Looney Tunes style in their animation, with Tiny Toons or with Animaniacs. And with Disney, they still want to incorporate the classic Disney style with shows like Darkwing Duck or DuckTales or Bonkers or what have you even. Now, at the same, and even when you think about other shows like Batman the Animated Series or Superman, even those shows, like, they try to retain a little bit of their comic book roots. So back then, it was all about keeping the classic style that they have already established. But then you have the 2010s, nowadays, when you think about shows like Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, Adventure Time, or even Phineas and Ferb, you notice that the design themselves are a lot more simplistic. It's the best way to describe it is that it's a lot more round. You see a lot of roundness in the facial features. You actually see a lot more roundness in terms of, like, their eyes, their cheeks, everything, like, even their hair. Everything is a lot more round. It's very rare that you would find any sharp edges, or, like, you actually see corners. The only one that I can really think of is Phineas and Ferb, or any of the style, like, or even, like, there's another TV show from the same people that made it. It's Milo Murphy's Law. But even at that, like, it's only partially there that you see the sharp edges, or, like, you actually see corners. They still have a lot of round, like, there's still a lot of roundness, but they still keep it very, very simple in their style. It is absolutely simplistic, and I think, now, if I may think about the reason why that 2010 animation, like, in terms of the design of the characters, is a lot more simplistic, I feel like it's more so that they want to keep the characters simplistic, so that it's easier to design them, but they want to try to improve it with amazing character animation. Like, you'll see in some of the you'll see in some of the shows like Steven Universe or Gravity Falls or Adventure Time, you'll see how the animation can be smooth because they have such simplistic style, like a simplistic design, that it's easy for the animator to go and do whatever they want, especially with TV shows where they try to really go into the psychedelic fantasy, especially with shows like Steven Universe, or the Amazing World of Gumball, or Adventure Time. Like, they want to be more spontaneous, they want to be sporadic, they want to go and explore and do whatever they want. And on top of that, like, even though they have a very simplistic design, some of them even want to try out, like, go into the third dimension. There are a few shows in which you do see 3D characters, especially with the Amazing World of Gumball. And I think that's mostly the reason why we would see such simplicity in terms of the design. Like, even though, like, even a kid can easily draw a character like Finn from Adventure Time, or Steven in Steven Universe, or even Mabel from Gravity Falls, or Wander on Wander Over Yonder. It's so, like, these are really simplistic designs that even a kid could draw it, but they try to make up for it with more crisp animation, with more smooth, like, a bit more smoothness. Of course, there is the limited animation, but like, as a TV show, you just gotta get going. Like, you need to make things as soon as you can. Like, even though you do have a simplistic design with you, like, you have to go and make even though they do have a simplistic design, that means it'll be quick and easy to draw when they want to go and do the movements of these characters. At least it'll be quicker for them. And that's basically how things were, like, how pretty much things are with TV. It's an interesting evolution that we see, going from a more stylized design, where, like, you see a bit more detail, and it goes a bit more in the classic cartoon era, like Looney Tunes and Disney, where you got that in the 90s, where now we pretty much got pretty much this small, simplistic style where, like, everything does seem to fit together. Like, and I can understand that in the 90s, a lot of people would say that they're, like, it's not just the classic style that they would stick to. It's not just Warner Brothers and Disney. Like, there's also Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, where back then, like, they're pretty much a gong show in terms of the style that they have. Like, we can all agree that in Cartoon Network, Dexter's Lab looks nothing like Cow and Chicken, which that looks nothing like the Powerpuff Girls, which that looks nothing like Ed, Edd and Eddy. It's pretty much, you get a whole variety, but that was back when they were pretty much starting. Nowadays, like, at least with Cartoon Network, you could see that they are starting to form a bit of their own style, or at least with television animation, where you could see that the style in terms of the design of the characters, they're a lot more simplistic. They're a lot more round. They're a lot more easy to do. They're a lot like you definitely see a lot of flat colors. Like you won't see these designs be implemented in an animated feature where it is required that you have to pretty much throw your all to make it the most stylistic, the most beautiful looking. You really gotta go and add detail into it. Like, we're talking about levels like William Joyce with movies such as Epic and Rise of the Guardians, or even interestingly stylistic, implementing the Chinese in Kung Fu Panda, or even looking back, even keeping your classic style that you got that works, with Disney. Like, for almost 80 years, things have been going pretty well with the style that they have implemented, so why stop there? Let's also implement that in our works such as Frozen and Wreck-It Ralph, or Tangled and stuff like that, As long as it works. This is you're never going to see that. Maybe you will, but most of the time they're just god-awful movies. But the thing is, with the 2010 design of the characters, it's really interesting. And you can see the direction that they are going, but it does make you reflect a little bit on the future. Because it's really fascinating to see that transition from the 90s to the 2010s now. If you think, jumping ahead, in 2030, what are the characters gonna look like back then? What's the design that you're going to see the characters look like that they're going to go with? Is it going to be a lot more simplistic, even more simplistic that we have now? Is it going to be more stylistic, like we had in the 90s? Is it going to be a lot more detailed, like an anime? Who knows? But I find this to be such a fascinating transition, seeing how we went from the stylistic look from the golden age of cartoons back in the 90s to right now, where we have these this very simplistic looking characters that is mostly just shapes in a way. I guess in a sense, the best way to describe it is a little bit like human versions of Inside Out characters. That's where we're pretty much dealing with here, where it's flat colors, simple design, easy to draw, but they try to make up for it by focusing more on the story, and also focusing on trying to make more loose animation and try to have more creative designs and, more interesting characters. That's mostly where the focus is, and I would even throw in adult shows as well. When you think about Rick and Morty, you would think about how these shows are you think how the style has gone a lot more simplistic than how they were back then, and how a lot of it can be a bit more reminiscent to how shows like Family Guy or The Simpsons are going, where you see a lot of the roundness in the design of those on those characters, and now it's being incorporated into something like this. So honestly, this is more of a thinking piece, thinking about how we pretty much evolved in terms of TV animation. Now, in terms of the story themselves and the political message that they try to go through, that is just another story for another day. I could spend an hour talking about that alone, but for now, this is just regarding the visuals and what we see. What do the characters look like? And it's kind of an interesting evolution, I must say. And who knows, maybe in a few years later, we'll see a new design be implemented, and that'll be the trend for animated series. Hey guys, this is Animat. I just want to remind you guys that this is just a little taste of what you can get with the Animation Podcast. This is not all of it. If you guys want to go and listen to the full episodes of the Animation Podcast, then allow me to show you some of the different ways that you can go. First off, you can actually go on the website that it is hosted on, Filmbook, so you can go directly onto there. You can also go and check out the official Filmbook Podcast YouTube page, so at least you don't have to go away from YouTube and you can listen to the podcast right there. But if you would like to listen on the go, like if you want to listen it to on your phone or on your iPad and all that kind of stuff, then you can listen to it on either iTunes or you can listen to it on Android. So those are all the different options, and if you'd like to have more info, then all you have to do is just check in the description down below. And with all that said, I just want to say thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, see you later, dudes!